Okay, good. All right, so where is my slideshow? From start. Okay, well, thank y'all so much for joining me today via Zoom because we're out of school. I appreciate it. I've gone through our synthesis essays that we've written and for Reading Lolita and the U.S. Postal Service one, and come up with some things that we need to do, some things that we did well, some things we need to improve. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
And again, just any questions you have, make sure you answer. So our synthesis rubric is here. You are all familiar with it by now. And according to the College Board, the synthesis question is going to ask you to synthesize information from a variety of sources. How many do you have to use?
Three.
At least three, right? To get a 3 or a 4, you have to use at least 3. Okay, so you have that 15-minute period to read, and you can get a point for a defensible thesis. You can get up to 4 points for evidence and commentary, and you can get 1 point for sophistication. Okay. All right, so the big issues that I saw in our Reading Lolita and U.S. Postal Service essays, basically the same for grammar and mechanics. Still using first person, the I's, the we, still using second person, you. Too many contractions, antecedent agreement, and clarity. Like you'll just throw in a they sometimes, and we don't know who they is. So you've got to be clear about your antecedent. That's what I mean, a vague or an unclear antecedent. And then agreement. Your antecedent has to agree, just like subjects and verbs agree. So if you have a singular subject and you're replacing it with a pronoun, then you have to use a singular pronoun. So those are some basic things that we need to work on in possession. Spelling, but it's going to be treated like a first draft, and so spelling is not going to be as big an issue as it would if you'd had time to revise everything, so I'm not too worried about that. For style in both essays, one thing I think we can do is to vary our sentence structure. Y'all are all really good at introductory clauses with a comma behind them and doing that. You're writing some good complex sentences. I think we just need to be conscious of, as I went back through them this weekend, I think we need to be conscious of varying the sentence structure. Okay, so y'all have good sentence structure, we just need to vary it. Again, the antecedent agreement was an issue. Cohesion, and that sort of goes to line of reasoning, which we'll talk about with content. But cohesion, we want to make sure that from the beginning, from our thesis, all the way through the conclusion, that whoever is reading it can follow and see what you're doing, okay? And then, y'all, you got to introduce the quotes. You can't just throw them in there. Like, we'll stop a sentence, we'll just throw a quote in there, and then we'll go on. You've got to tell what you're doing. You got to introduce it, make it connect to the sentence before it somehow. Sometimes you can do that with colons. Don't stop your sentence before that. Just put a colon, and then you show that it goes with that. But we'll practice that. And then MLA format, you've got to cite those sources. Now when in the USPS essay, you did a much better job of that because we had worked so on saying the author's name in the sentence and then giving the source at the end. So I did see a lot of improvement from the Reading Lolita and Tehran essay all the way to the USPS essay, okay? In both essays, I would say we need better evidence and more commentary. A lot of you are only given one sentence of commentary. You want your commentary to be more than your evidence. That evidence is there to support your points, your commentary. So we've got to work on that. And then line of reasoning, and that's the following through, making your claim and having all your evidence, all your points support that all the way through. Okay, so what questions do you have about that? Yes, Parker.
So when we're citing our evidence, if we have a picture, how would we cite that? Would we do it in parentheses like source A if it was a picture and things like that?
If you are doing the synthesis essay for AP and it's a source, you would cite it as source A, and often you'll have the person who took the photo, you'll have their name. So you would treat them like an author. You could say in Henson's photo of the smallest post office in America, 1982, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you would finish and you would put source A or whatever.
Okay.
So you usually will have an attribution there for it. So you can use that person's name, but you can also just use the source number or source letter like you've been given. I will say that the U.S. Postal Service, your evidence and commentary were better probably, but in your using your sources, documenting was much better. But I think the content of the Reading Lolita and Tehran essay was more interesting, and that it was better because I think those are sources. I mean, those were sources you chose and there were topics you chose. So I think you were more interested in them, and that did show through. The AP, the College Board, I swear, I think they pick out the most boring topics they possibly can and try to kill you with them to see if you can focus and read. Okay. Any more questions before we move on from that? Okay. But y'all, like the grammar mechanics issues, some of these, for some of y'all, have been writing since August, and you've got to clean those up. Okay. It's March. You've got to clean them up if you want to get the most credit you can get. Okay. So the takeaways here. Again, grammar mechanics, same mistakes over and over. You got to fix it. You're an AP, you're smart, fix it. The citing sources improved in the USPS essay. Again, need to work on the varying sentence structure and the cohesion. We talked about that. All right, so the content in the Reading and Lolita Tehran, the Reading Lolita and Tehran essay, like I said, the content was more interesting, but for the defensible thesis, only 6 out of 11 of you had a defensible thesis. I went back and counted this weekend. And then in the U.S. Postal Service, everybody had a defensible thesis. So you really improved, it was a 50% improval almost. The use of evidence was much stronger, 10 out of 11 in the USPS. 10 out of 11 of you used at least 3 sources. Your commentary still needs work. We want to work on that sentence structure variation in our line of reasoning because we want to get the sophistication point. You can get it. Y'all are close. But like I said, you got to clean up these basic errors and vary that sentence structure. Like we're just at the point where we need to really work toward the sophistication point. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions? No? Y'all alive still?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Have y'all enjoyed sleeping in so far?
Haven't
A little bit.
I haven't gotten to.
You haven't? I haven't either. So it'll be okay though. All right. So our next steps, here's the prompt, the advertising prompt. Okay. And this is the essay where you had to develop a position on the effects of advertising and synthesize at least 3 of the sources. And you had to decide whether advertising is propaganda, or you had to determine whether it promotes prosperity and free trade. So individually, you had 15 minutes to read the sources. You determined the position that you personally would take, and then we participated in the quick debate. So together, you had to, with your group, choose a position for your essay. You had to write a thesis. Then we circulated the theses from each group to the other so that you could, have peer evaluations of that, and then you revised your thesis, okay? You had to repeat that with each body paragraph and then with your conclusion. So I let y'all, I let my honors classes vote to see what they said. So here were the results, and we had a chance to look at these. They told you what the best point was, what the improvements that could be made in the best paragraphs. Overall, I really agreed with their assessment about best points in each essay and about improvement in each essay. A lot of them did complain about handwriting, but I told them that wasn't something they should really comment on, that wasn't the point. And it wasn't an issue for me. Okay, so from doing the Reading Lolita and Tehran essay, from doing the USPS essay, and then from doing the group essay, before I talk about it, I want you to tell me, how did the group essay help you?
Well, we got everyone else's opinion on the matter, which was really interesting. And it was a lot easier to come up with arguments.
Okay, because you had somebody else. I think I agree that that does make it easier. What about the writing and the revising? Like when you would get back a get back your thesis or a paragraph that other people had commented on, how did that help you?
You could see what mistakes you're making in your writing that you normally won't see because they're pointing it out.
Okay. What did you learn, do you think, personally about yourself? Like what mistake or what did you see repeated over and over that everybody caught that you hadn't? And it's for anybody.
For instance, in ours, we kept being told like that we couldn't use the word ads, even though we abbreviated in our first part, where you say advertisements,
Right.
we put ads in parentheses.
Mm-hmm.
We kept being told in our group consisting of me, Olivia, Anna, and Emily, we kept being told consistently that even though we like put ads at the top, we still shouldn't keep writing like ADS for ads.
Okay, that you should spell it out. Okay. What else? Did you get comments about your style or anything like that?
Sometimes they would, like, something I like to comment on a lot is how people phrase sentences, like if they made it too long or too confusing,
Okay.
just the way it's structured.
I think that's really good to help people with that because we do have an issue with run-on sentences. Okay, so these were my concerns in attention to spelling. Again, that's not as big a deal as the other things. Agreement with pronouns and antecedents and subject verb. And the subject verb agreement normally in an essay you've had time to revise and work on, I would say is a huge issue and it would cost you a letter grade. However, I think the antecedent agreement is a bigger issue in the AP essay because the readers recognize that you're doing a first draft and that you're changing, maybe you just change your sentence mid-thought. And so that's why you might have a subject verb agreement error. One thing we need to work on is transitions. I think I wrote it down somewhere how many times I wrote that down, maybe like 8 times out in almost every essay that I commented on that. And citations, we've talked about that and we'll practice that some more when we come back. So that should be it. Okay, I was making sure everybody was able to get in. Okay, but celebrations, things that you've done really well. You have improved the thesis strength. You went from 6 out of 11 having a defensible thesis in reading Lolita and Tehran essay to everybody having a defensible thesis in your USPS essays, and then in your group synthesis essay about advertising, the theses were very strong. So I've seen great improvement, okay, there. Your evidence has gotten better, and it was the strongest in the group essay, so the evidence is getting better. We just got to work on, in a lot of, one group, I think the one that's in here, I'm not sure you had a quote in this paragraph, but maybe you had 2 paraphrases somewhere, but they were good and strong and attributed correctly. So paraphrase is fine, but do make sure you're using quotes too. The commentary is improving. It was much better in these essays, in the group essays. So I want you to try to think of commentary sentences. I want you to think of maybe like 3 to 1, 3 commentary sentences for 1 evidence sentence, okay? The formality was much better. Here, I don't think I saw a you. If I did, if you know that there's one in there on those group essays, don't tell me because I don't think I saw one. I was really proud. I didn't see any first person. So I was really proud that you listened there. The line of reasoning was much clearer. In this one, the one that I chose, can you see that one? Can y'all see this one?
We can't read it, but we can see the picture.
Okay, so this is the one that I chose as the best overall, and it was, I have it here on the paper. It's the one whose thesis is, critics say that advertising promotes stereotypes and creates markets for dangerous products. However, it sustains the free use of services and educates on societal norms and important issues. Therefore, advertising is not just a useful tool for businesses, rather it creates benefits for the common man. That one is the one that I think, and the reason I chose it, they were all good. They were all good. I was pleased with that. This one, though, the line of reasoning followed all the way through, like it pulled together, it was cohesive, and that's why I chose that one. Okay, so again, I think we made big strides, and I hope, do you feel like your understanding of how to write the synthesis essay is better than it was when you did the first one, the Reading Lolita and Tehran?
Yes.
Okay, why?
Because I've had more experience, and then just talking with other people in class and getting ideas and then telling me what I'm doing wrong and what I'm doing right is helping me realize what I need to fix and what I need to keep.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you, Parker. Okay, so the next thing we're talking about is moving forward. Now, we actually did this already, the Watch the Line of Reasoning video, and that was actually a video for teachers, but I thought it would be really, sometimes I think teachers guard their videos and their stuff like that, but I think it maybe helps you if you can see how teachers are thinking and why they're doing the things that they are doing. And so, as they talked about in that video, it's really important that we read quality writing and decide why it's quality. We will be, when we return, cutting and pasting the quality writing like they talked about in that video, because that's something that I've always done too. We haven't done it this year, I don't think, other than with your own essays. As we move forward, we want to follow Nafisi's line of reasoning in her discussion of Austen's Pride and Prejudice. And so in our Pride and Prejudice assignment, the dance structure, I gave you the page numbers again. I think it starts on 266, where you can read that section. It's just about 3 pages where she talks about that. I also gave you a link to an article. If you haven't looked at that already, in the article, there are clips from different movies, different versions, and it talks about the dance with it, and they're the clips of the dances. So it really gives you a visual element. I think it'll help you as you trace that. We want to follow Austen's line of reasoning in Pride and Prejudice. And I think you'll really see that clearly when she's talking, and she's talking a lot about marriage and social manners and things. But I think it'll be really easy to trace Nafisi's idea about the dance structure as you do it. I did make a graphic organizer for you, but I don't know that it's the best way. I was just trying to think of how we could do it. So if you have a better way, please share that with the group. And then, of course, we will write. We will continue to write and practice. And then we can meet virtually as necessary during the quarantine, whenever y'all want to. Okay? Because I even miss y'all very much, So it was kind of weird not to go to school yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did, though. I went to school yesterday, and I sanitized our room and just tried to get it ready for when we go back. And Annie is over here trying to be part of our video, but you can't. Well, thank y'all again so much. Does anybody have any questions?
So you emailed me back and said that you were changing the lesson plan. Are we still writing those essays that you said we were writing in class?
Well, I didn't put that in there because after I made those lessons and told you about them, the state superintendent said it's not going to be e-learning and we can't give grades. And so I didn't know if everybody would still want to do it. I will go back and put it in there. And if you would just practice, it would be great. It would be good practice. But I realize that a lot of times when you're out of school, you're going to end up being a babysitter, or you're going to have to do some things that you don't have hours and hours to devote to AP English. But if you're going to choose some hours to devote to academics, AP English would be the thing, because that test is coming. I don't know how it's going to look. I don't know if the time frame will change. So at least for us, I would really like to maybe meet once a week and just talk about things and practice some things. So y'all just think about that, and you can send me comments or whatever, about that. And we can do this since it seemed to work. Was it easy for everybody to do the Zoom?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Good. Okay, well, I guess I will let y'all go, and I will see you again maybe next week. Okay, stay safe, stay home.
You too.
Stay
You
safe
too,
this roll
Christine.
tide.
Bye.
Bye, roll tide. Okay, how do I stop recording?